Welcome back, everybody, to me talking about stuff. And today, we need to set some records straight and do some other stuff. Because Dr. Philip Chase, who I absolutely respect and have nothing but love and admiration for, did something inexcusable. He made a video and he claimed that he was rambling. And I, being the toxically masculine person that I am, feel the need to reassert myself as prime rambler in the slightly book-related YouTube sphere pertaining to Malazan. And so I feel the urge to go and ramble back at him and about the same topic because it was a topic that I feel I have opinions on, which, basically covers everything except maybe the mating cycle of sea slugs, but give me a couple of minutes and I'll come up with something about that as well. In this case, however, I'm a bit closer to the main thing, so I figured I'll just sit down, have a beer, and talk to you about it. So yeah, let's do that. Cheers. Alright, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the video that Dr. Philip Chase made, and then Wild Witch Ola made a video herself, and I'll probably touch on that as well. We'll see how that goes on the whole concept of rating. Now, I prefer rating over rating. That's just because I have pretenses of, I don't know, I like Viking stories is what I'm saying here. Anyway, point is, going somewhere and taking someone's stuff and burning down some monasteries seems better than handing out stars, but that's just my opinion. My point is, Dr. Chase made a great video about why he doesn't put up star ratings in his videos and so forth. And I have thoughts on rating and giving stars, numbers, or whatever to pieces of art, and personally I don't like it. I'll just say that up front. But I figure I'll just ramble a bit about my thoughts on the matter, and then we'll see where all this is going. So, to give some background, I've been writing music reviews for a long time, almost a decade now. God, I'm old. Nothing too fancy. It's on a website. It's all in German. You're probably not interested in it. It's all about heavy metal and so forth. But because I'm part of that specific magazine, we do have a sound check a monthly, where we rate and rank 20 to 25 new releases and whatnot. We have to give ratings to music albums that we get there. The only albums we don't get ratings to are live albums, singles, and whatnot, because it feels a bit silly there. But so there's numbered ratings. The scale there is from 1 to 10, with half points in there, from I guess 1 to 10 with 9.5 and 8.5 and all of that stuff in between. Which, is fine, and I've done that for, as I said, the better part of a decade now. I've given some 10s, I've given some 1s. I'm all over the board there. I do have spicy opinions from time to time when it comes to music as well. So I'm used to giving numbers out. When I started this channel, I obviously didn't know what I was doing. Not much has changed in that regard, but I started talking about books. And I was so glad to be able to not have to rate stuff, to not give out numbers and shit. Because I feel those numbers are always a bit arbitrary, and don't actually reflect what's going on there with a piece of art. We're talking about art. Art's subjective. The appreciation of art is subjective. How could we possibly give out ratings that are more than I liked it, I didn't like it, it was okay? This is basically the scale, right? It's I hate something, I don't like it, I don't care either way, I do like it, or I'm madly in love with it. That's sort of your basic 5-point rating kind of thing, I guess, in a way. But that's all it does. And I do see some problems, and I'll go through those in a rough way now. So let's look at how we come from these I appreciate a piece of art to I give it a number, or a rating that is basically a number, because if you call it 1 to 5 stars or just the number, doesn't really matter. How do we come there, and why do we do this, and is that actually a good idea? let's get back to history and shit, shall we? All right. So there's a bunch of things that I want to look at here. First thing is, when did we as humans start to put everything into numbers and rely extremely well much and rely a lot on numbers? I blame the Enlightenment, which is always a good idea to do because the Enlightenment fucked up a lot of stuff. It also did a lot of good things, don't get me wrong. The Enlightenment is a great time. It has had a huge impact on our society, but not all of the side effects are, perfect. That's what I'm saying here. Go read your Adorno and you'll learn more about the side effects of the Enlightenment that might be a problem. My point is, it can lead to fascism, but that's not our topic for today. The topic that I'm going to look at is that around the Enlightenment, the Baroque era, we have the rise of natural sciences. Your Newtons, your Descartes, your Boyles, and whatever you have there started. Basically, it's Francis Bacon that we need to look at here. But that's that's the point. It's like we start to put everything into numbers, find rules, we quantify, we believe in science, in the repeatability of experiments, and so forth. The scientific method is established, and that's great. It kind of helps us to defeat pandemics, to prove that measuring skulls for character traits is bullshit, and all the other good things that science have brought us. And that's great. However, we have a problem as humans in general. It's exacerbated by that, but it's not the only thing. I think it's just human nature. If something works, we use it all the time. It's the same thing that I do. It's like, I drink beer, I like it, it works, I drink a lot more beer, right? Not my point, though. What I'm trying to say is that once we find the scientific method working, bringing us a lot of progress, a lot of success in all kinds of things that make our lives better, we as a species started to use the scientific method for everything. Whatever, we figured we can all put it into numbers. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work that well. But because we look at the world in that scientific way, we don't mind the parts where it doesn't work that well. We just change the problem until it works. It has led to some really ridiculous ideas. You go and look your Auguste Comte and your I think it's August, I keep forgetting. That guy in the 19th century, positivism, replacing religion. It's a trip. But that's sort of the really extreme, weird ideas of putting everything into numbers and making everything scientific. However, that scientific paradigm does still exist. It also wonderfully combined with what we might call capitalism. It's we quantify everything already in a scientific way, and then we just add monetary value or value judgments in some way to those quantifications, right? It's more is better or whatever. So that's the rough thing that's going on there. And that is basically the root of our problem. We start to quantify everything, and it's just a matter of time until we start to quantify art. And I'm talking about art here. We can discuss whether every book written is art or not. I'll just call it art right now. We're not having an art discussion. Music, movies, TV shows, books, all of that stuff is basically art. And so we apply those metrics, the scientific and monetary metrics that the 18th and 19th century, the rise of the scientific method and the rise of consumer capitalism have, that we have started to apply to everything else. And it's a problem that we apply to everything else as well. Don't get me wrong, but this is not our topic for today because we're not calling for a complete burning down of the system and the rise of anarcho-communism today. That's not the topic of today's talk. The topic of today's talk is why ratings in books suck. Or in music, don't get me wrong. What I was going to say is that we start to apply it to that. We apply it, and suddenly we have these two metrics, the monetary and the quality metric that is still basically a number that we apply to something that cannot actually be quantified, because art cannot be quantified. We do it anyway, and then we connect it to the monetary value. One side of the whole thing. The other side is that we started to quantify humans, in sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. You go and weigh people to find out how heavy they are. That's quantification that works. You make people take intelligence tests and give them numbers that say you're that smart or that smart. That doesn't work that well. Then you go and start quantifying our education system. Like, depending on where you live, your education system is quantified to the utter ends of the fucking universe. And that's wrong, because you can't quantify education that way. You can make people take tests, but those will probably not reflect whether someone has actually learned something or just crammed in facts and whatnot. Because you can check for facts way easier than for all kinds of other learning, which is why, for example, it's so difficult to give like grades in, I don't know, philosophy class or whatever. Or philosophy at university, don't get me wrong. That problem doesn't stop. So quantifying stuff in the educational side, where we quantify or rate an achievement, is the one side. The other one is that we try to actually measure everything. We measure art and give it numbers. Like, measuring and rating are conflated, basically. That's the problem there. It's like we can quantify and give numbers to books, right? We can numbers of words, page count, number of invented words, number of pseudonyms, like number of different words, like size of vocabulary. There's a lot of ways to quantify a book, but all of those will not give you like any idea of whether it's a book that you will enjoy reading or not. No, for that you need information about its content, and you can't quantify that kind of content. Like, even a number of like how many characters are in a book, or how many battles, how many sex scenes, how many whatever, how many horses die in a book, will not give you any information on whether you will like the book or not. And since the only goal for art is how much can art move you and your character and yourself and your personality, and how much do you enjoy consuming it, those are the reasons why you go and appreciate art, right? Those are subjective, and you can never quantify those in numbers, which is why rating books is bullshit. So let's look at like why we still do it. Why do we do it? Because we attach value judgment to a quantifier. We go like, yeah, a 5-star is better than 1 star. And because we have cast it into numbers that seem to be objective, we attach all kinds of other meaning to that. And we suddenly feel that reading a 5-star book is better than reading a 1-star book. Whether we enjoy the 1-star book more than the 5-star book doesn't really matter at that point. We also feel, a lot of us, I guess, because of fucking consumer capitalism, feel that spending our hard-earned cash, which we got like through slaving away in the mines of 40, 50, 60-hour weeks in menial jobs, spending that hard-earned cash on a 5-star book is a better way of spending our money than spending it on a 1-star book. We feel like we got more out of our money. Which is why you have product reviews, which is the second like large category that I feel that we have to figure out when we talk about rating books or rating art in general. Because rating stars in like books, or numbers, ratings for music or whatever, is a hybrid between a school grade and a consumer review. It's like, I say this has meaning, this is well thought out, this is high quality on the intellectual level, like in the school grade system, or at the same time, spending money on this is actually worth it. This is a worthwhile investment of your time and money. And once again, that doesn't work with fucking art, because those are very, very personal things. You can go and read R.A. Salvatore's books and enjoy them. And I would still give them I wouldn't give them ratings because I don't do that shit, but I would certainly say those are trash. They're entertaining trash, at least some of it is. Cleric Quintet is pretty fun to read. There's certainly trash to me, but if you enjoy that book, more power to you. Go do it. Don't feel bad for it. And that's sort of what I was trying to aim at while I'm rambling, which is sort of the other goal of this video, the overt one, to show that I am the prime rambler. I would say at that point, ratings and stars have lost meaning. And now we come to the next big thing here. Social fucking media. Now, we as humans are performative creatures. A lot of the stuff we do in society is performative, right? We dress in a specific way, we behave in a specific way, all to project towards other people an image that we want to, project to them. So far, so good. So what? Comes the fucking internet along, and the fucking internet is like, suddenly we project our image to way more people than just our parents that roll their eyes when we decide to paint our bedroom black and just wear black. I never did that. Point is, suddenly we perform for a much larger audience. Suddenly everything, because through social media and the internet in general, the socialization of internet, if that makes sense, many more of like our daily acts become visible to other people and thus become performative, right? It's like suddenly what we buy can be shared with everyone and becomes a performance through that, right? We can rate on pages like Goodreads or Discogs or what have you. We can rate all our like music, book, movie, and what have you collections. We can rate those and show to everyone what we have and what we think of it. And that becomes performative. Suddenly, having a book collection full of one-star books feels like we're terrible people or stupid or what have you, because lack of intelligence, perceived lack of intelligence, is seen as a severe flaw. I would say that intellect, if you could ever measure it, like intelligence, has only a tenuous connection to character and a lot of other things. You can be highly intelligent and an arsehole. I'd rather hang out with nice people than with like super smart arseholes. Just saying. But the point is, suddenly our art appreciation becomes a performance as well. So rating stuff and rating stuff in the same way that other people do becomes a performative art and gains another facet that is once again toxic and far removed from the actual like use, the actual meaning, the actual reason for art to exist. We don't produce art for other people to show off that they like it. I mean, I guess we don't, unless we are professional artists, I guess. I have no idea in that regard. But the point is, we have these three facets. One of them is like, this is a taxing, brilliant book, and people reading this are smart. Part two, this is a book that is well worth your money. You get a lot out of it. That's the commercial aspect. The performative one is, I give this book 5 stars and I put it in my Goodreads account so people can see that I'm a smart person reading smart books, which is why I talk about the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Don't get me wrong, I love the book. I just feel that that's certainly part of what makes parts of the Malazan community a bit toxic, is that people hold out the perceived, intellectual level of the Malazan books way up too high in front of them and pretend to be smart because they read that book. But I've talked about that before. My point is, suddenly those ratings are anything but an actual guide for anyone with a sincere question of, should I read this book or not? They're not at this point. So if you sincerely want to read a book, what you can do and what you should do, or what I think is much more helpful, is talk to someone that you trust and that you, through a long conversation or watching their videos, reading their reviews, what have you, have established that their tastes run in a similar way to yours, or in the opposite way. That does also work. Like someone that you can relate to in whatever way, and follow their recommendations if you feel like it. or their warnings. Same goes for, I don't know, authors that you enjoy. Chances are that authors that you enjoy reading enjoy books or like books that you might also be interested in, because if nothing else, those books probably influenced what they are writing now. So it'll probably give you an insight into those writers, like, influences and whatnot. So that's a good idea to go about. But don't go about like checking for ratings, checking for stars and stuff. That will not help at all. Now let's look at what I'll do here and how I do things here. I mean, I don't review books. I've said that before. I'm reviewing music. It's hard enough. I want to talk about stuff that I enjoy, and then I'll tell you why I enjoy it. And ideally, because I'm that kind of person, and I love to mansplain to each and every one of you, I also tell you what else you could possibly think about books and what effects inside on and stuff. That's sort of what I'm trying to do here. And I'll do this with books that I'm interested in. That's books that I really love, or that haven't had an impact on me, and that I want to share. I don't want to sit down and read a, I don't know, okay book and then tell you about why it is okay. No one will actually profit from that. And profit is the wrong word, but we won't get anything out of that. I'll be bored, you'll be bored, and at the end of the day, I spent an Audible credit to listen to the whole thing, and you will maybe spend one or not, depending on how you feel, or buy the book or not, or borrow it, or pirate it, or whatever, and that's it. No one learned anything. So we don't do that here. I talk about books that I love, that I feel more people should read, because then we can go and actually talk about it. I'm desperate to talk about the books that I make videos about. I want to talk to each and every one of you about your experiences about these kind of things. That's why I'm doing this here. Or, which I haven't done yet, because I'm a bit wary to do that, is I'll talk about stuff that really, really, really makes me angry. Books that I hate with a passion. Because I'm a passionate person. So things that make me angry, where I think the author is doing something horribly wrong, sending terrible messages, that kind of stuff. That's something that I could make videos about. I might at some point, but I don't want to turn this into like Raph ranting about shitty books kind of thing, because also I don't want to go back and reread The Witcher and the Salvatore stuff. But that's a different story. My point is, that's why I would not call the things that I do here reviews. Even the ones when I say, y'all should read this book. I sincerely mean that. You can put 5 stars on it if that helps you. But that's all about, that's it. I sincerely mean you should read that book, because after that we can sit down and talk about how great it is, or you can tell me how terrible it is, and we can talk about that and argue about that. That's the goal of this. Before we end this, I'll just tell you a wonderful anecdote that explains how ridiculous the whole star thing has become over the years. So a couple of years ago, I had to review a music album by a band called Equilibrium. They're pretty cheesy, stupid, slightly folkish party metal from Germany. Never mind. I really hated the album. I had a lot of issues with it, both production stuff, which is style, but I things that I don't like in that part of music. Also about very problematic lyrics and whatnot, and I gave it, because I had to rate it, 1 out of 10 stars. And then we got feedback on the internet about this review, and the feedback was that my review had to be wrong, because the album had 5 stars on Amazon from 50 reviews, so I had to be wrong. Yeah, right? I mean, think about it. If 50 people think this is a great album and you think it's a bad album, you must be wrong. Same for books. If everyone loves The Wheel of Time, I will still go and tell you that The Eye of the World is a terribly boring book. And I might actually go and reread it and tell you in detail about that in the future. We will see. Anyway, thank you for listening to me rambling. I hope we've established me as Prime Rambler again. And I'll see you soon to talk about something else. And until then, cheers.